Dzień agus fáilte roimh na parcána nisca. Not quite as big as the one for Mark, but I'll take it. I'm going to run with it. I am so excited to be here tonight, and I want to welcome Mr. Hamill for joining us. I took the red-eye flight. I was in the White House this time yesterday for a meeting with the Taoiseach and President Trump. Took the red-eye home tonight to be a part of this, the biggest Creative Minds program we've ever had. And it's actually the first time I've heard them cheering the speaker as they walk in. So I think we're in for something special tonight. So really want to welcome you. And I'm trying to do the balance here between a composed charge d'affaires and a sycophantic 6-year-old. And I'm going to try that. We'll see if I get it. But you know, our Creative Minds program's really been one of our flagship programs. Throughout the 3 years we've been doing it, we've had a great 3 years. We've had Oscar winners, Oscar-winning directors. We've had a great relationship with the Disney company. We've had authors, Grammy-winning performers, scientists, entrepreneurs, astronauts, and now a Jedi Master. So, you know, this is, Mark Hamill's had such a great career playing one of the most iconic characters in the history of film. But he's had a great career in television and movies. Really, you played the range, Mark. If you go from the Joker on one side, one of the most iconic villains of all time, to one of the most iconic heroes, I think you've got the full gambit there. But he's just had an amazing career in TV films and voiceovers, and we're just so excited to have you here tonight. Now, I was 6 when Star Wars came out, and I remember going the first time and being absolutely mesmerized, and I think that would be a common thing for people of my age. And my family tells a story. Now, how I remember it, I conned 3 relatives to take me. So I remember seeing Star Wars 3 times, but the story now, I've got all of my relatives who claim every aunt and uncle said that I made them go to Star Wars. So it looks like if that's true, I would have went 19 times as a 6-year-old, which I understand a lot of people did at that era. But no, it was just it's a beloved film, and you know, something that really touched my heart at a very young age. I really love the fact we were able to fit everybody in tonight. I think we've spilled into like the 4th room over there. But what we try to do with Creative Minds, we're trying to bring people together. We're trying to bring thought leaders together. What we want to do as it starts to get where it used to be people's parents or grandparents had the connection back to Ireland, but now the ties are becoming 5th, 6th generation as we go back, you know, with my own family back to the Great Famine. So what we try to do with Creative Minds is to create those ties. And tonight we're trying to do it with the film industry. So thank you for Mr. Hamill for coming in for Disney. But what we want to do is to open it up to different audiences, have you come to Phoenix Park, but to create these connections for tomorrow and build those bridges so that the Irish-American relationship stays just as strong as it ever was. The theme of this year's St. Patrick's Day Festival is home, which I believe is extremely fitting. For many Americans and Irish consider each other's country home. And Mark Hamill, I'm told, has family heritage here, and now through his films, filming in Skellig Michael, I think would have a special connection now to the island. I arrived here over a year ago, and I have traveled all over this wonderful country. I'm looking forward to getting to Skellig Michael. That's my next goal. But I've been overwhelmed by the kindness and generosity. People made me feel so at home here. And with that in mind, I'd really like to thank our host, the Walt Disney Company, and also the St. Patrick's Ireland, the St. Patrick's Day Festival. And I'd like to invite Susan Kirby, the CEO of the St. Patrick's Festival, to come and say a few words. So Susan, if you come on.
So So, good evening, everybody. It's such a huge honour to be here this evening and to welcome you all, not least Mary Lou, Chelsea, and indeed Mark. Fáilte romh go léir nacht chun ceiliúirlinn an éile néfóric. I have to thank you, Charles de Ferris, and your spectacular team here for hosting us. And I really must mention as well the incredible team in Disney, Mo and Trish, for working with us. We're really delighted to work with you as part of the Creative Minds series this evening. It is the eve of St. Patrick's Day. I'm not normally seen out on this particular night. So I can tell you that I was literally, 6-year-old me and not quite 6-year-old me were both jumping for joy when I heard that Mark would be our international guest of honour this year. The festival kicked off yesterday and it runs till Monday. And this year, as Rhys so eloquently described, we're celebrating the theme of home. The parade itself celebrates the theme, home is where the heart is. And it's a very celebratory theme, but it's also quite thought-provoking. And I'm sure Aideen and Mark will be exploring some of that in their conversation later, and we look forward to that. We here are all very familiar with the role of the Grand Marshal, and this year our Grand Marshal is Liam Cunningham, who's another iconic star of film and stage, well known in Game of Thrones, and I'm delighted to say as well Liam and Mark actually know one another. But for some years we've been conceiving of the idea. I suppose it's happened so many times that we've had these amazing friends, essentially, all over the world, who may not claim themselves as Irish, but they have this deep affinity with Ireland, and I suppose feel a deep affinity to the vision for Ireland as well. And with that in mind, we conceived of the role of International Guest of Honour, and I can hand on heart say to you that it was beyond our expectations to think that the inaugural role would be accepted by an icon. And that's a word that's used regularly and not always in an appropriate sense, but I certainly think you'll join me in saying that it's very appropriate in this context. To explain the role as we see it, it's an individual who represents Ireland on a global stage, or as I said, has a deep affinity with our beloved country. So I suppose it only stands to me to say to you, Mark, Céad Míle Fáilte, Tásúil gom go maith tú an tána bhas, Tásúil gom go maith an fórsalat, mar therefore. By way of direct translation, may the force be with you. We sincerely hope, and because that is the point, we hope you as an individual and as a family really enjoy your experience here. And it's a cultural festival, it's a celebration of Ireland, and we really welcome you, and I hope everybody joins me in doing so. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. We've had so many great partners for this event tonight, so I'd be remiss if I didn't single out Trish Long and the entire Disney team and Tourism Ireland and Fáilte Ireland. They've been such great partners with us, so thank you very much. And of course, Mark, thank you for being so generous with your time and coming out and spending with us. I tell you, the Irish government is fanned out all over the world right now. So the ministers, the Taoiseach, the prime ministers in Washington, all the ministers are all over the place. Tokyo, you name it, Beijing, all across Europe. The one minister that stays behind the designated survivor is Minister Ross, and he's here tonight. But I know, I was talking to the ministers and folks in Washington, and they were all so upset that they couldn't be here for tonight. So with further ado, I'd like to introduce the wonderful Aideen Gromley. Hi. And so please, she has been the host of radio programs and movies and musicals, as well as Sunday Matinee on Lyric FM. So Aideen and Mark, I'd like to welcome you to the stage. So let's give them a big hand.
Hi, everybody. You're so welcome. And hi down the back. And a particular welcome to those of you who have travelled to be with us today. We're all waving. I know your phones are out now. You're more than welcome to take a few photos. And then can I ask you to turn them off because we are recording this for radio, but you will have a chance to take a photo
Super
again
selfie.
later. So super selfie, here we go, okay? Wonderful. We are beyond thrilled, Mark Hamill, to have you with us in Dublin
Likewise,
tonight.
thanks
And
for
it's a
having
beautiful
me.
summery evening all of a sudden now that you're here.
It's lovely.
You've been busy. You were honoured at the Oscar Wilde Awards hosted by J.J. Abrams, onto the Oscars then where you were on presenting duties.
Right.
And ladies and gentlemen, I think you will join me in congratulating Mark Hamill on receiving a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
And I say that, I can't say that's a dream come true because I was never foolish to even dream something like that would be possible. I just wanted a job in the industry I loved. It's not something that you set your sights on. I was really gratified because they said, who would you like to be there for the ceremony? I said, well, George Lucas and Harrison Ford, but they'll never come. They don't like all the hoopla and the crowds and the photographers, so I was really moved that George flew down just for me and then flew right back. He's not real fond of Hollywood. And Harrison, oh my gosh.
Well, Harrison, I think, though, and I ask you this, Mark, knowing you do a very good Harrison impression, seemed a little envious of the crowds he pulled, right?
He got up to the podium and he said, I just want you to know I have much bigger crowds than that. And I said, great kid, don't get cocky. Even though it's true.
It was quite a crowd.
No, I mean, again, it was just so surprising to, reporters will say, did you ever expect all those years ago that you'd be back 30 years later playing the same character? I wish I could just answer yes, but of course not. I mean, George Lucas himself said we were making a film we thought for children, but I think he just hit that sweet spot where it appeals to the child in all of us. We expected to be on the cover of, Highlights magazine and Jack and Jill, not on Time and Newsweek. I mean, it was a great surprise, and the longevity of the series is astonishing. What I particularly love is the fact that it's generational. The original fans have grown up with children of their own, and they pass their love of the movies down to their kids. And how personal the stories are when people come up to me. It's woven into the fabric of pop culture, but it's also so personalized. The spirituality of the Force and the stories you hear of, it got me through my grandmother's illness, or I met my wife online for Empire Strikes Back, and by the time Return of the Jedi came out, we were married, had twins named Luke and Leia. I mean, but it's true. I mean, they all related to their families and to the way it's impacted their lives is inspiring. I never get used to it. I certainly never take it for granted. And you have to keep a stone face. They say, I named my kid R2-D2. How nice. Call him Artie, though. Because that's like a magnet for bullies with a name like that. And people don't realize the first film I made here wasn't The Force Awakens. I came here in 1978 to make Samuel Fuller's The Big Red One, a war film that starred Lee Marvin. And I mean, anyone who comes here is just struck by the abject beauty of the countryside. The follow-up is the people are so warm, so friendly, have such a great sense of humor. They treat you like family. So I fell in love with this country 40 years ago. Now, Lee said we should go out to John Borman's house, the director, John Borman. And we went, beautiful estate. And after dinner, he was having a cigar and he goes, guess how much I pay in taxes? I don't know, how much do you pay in taxes? 0. And so a little light bulb went off in my head, ding. Now I know it's probably changed since then, but
So you're going to buy a place here, is that what you're saying?
well, listen, when you think of, because I did a lot of theater in New York, and I do love the theater, but living there it's so high energy, and it is, whether it's Los Angeles or New York, it's a rat race, and you come to a country like this, you thought, oh boy, I could easily see myself settling down here.
We're going to talk about Force Awakens and Last Jedi shortly. I just wanted to go back to the beginning in terms of what George Lucas said again at the ceremony the other day, when he just commented on that immediate chemistry that you and Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford had. In your head, did you bond immediately?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, people don't realize this, but I didn't read the script. When they gave me the part, I'd only I'd done a screen test of 12 pages. So when they said, you have the part and we're sending the script over, and you couldn't really tell anything from the screenplay. I said, is this like a parody? Is this like Mel Brooks or something? It was the scene where we're going to the Death Star. They took the Obi-Wan character out, so it was just Harrison and I. I've told this story before, but this is a line I said in 1976 when I auditioned. It didn't wind up in the final print of the film, but you have to understand, I mean, I could intellectually diagram the sentence. It made sense. The tricky part was trying to say it like you were thinking of it for the first time. And the line was, Harrison, he's driving, that's no moon, it's a space station. And Han Solo turns to Luke and says, hey, kid, I've held up my part of the bargain. As soon as I get the chance, I'm dropping you and the droids off. And I said, Luke turns to him and says, but we can't turn back. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aquilaire's Sullust. And what there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault. I mean, it makes sense, but try just throwing that off like it's just coming to you for the first time. And so, I really didn't know, and I was going to George saying, this is a kind of a fun thing, right? Well, come on, we'll talk about it later. And by the way, come on, let's do it, and we'll talk about it later means let's do it and we'll never talk about it later. He was like that throughout the entire filming. And Harrison had worked with him in American Graffiti, so I said, oh, come on, you get a feel for George's, he's like, hey, let's just get it done. And I went, okay. So he was no help at all. The best choice I made was to not be arch or send it up or wink at the material, just to be as sincere as I could be. I had no choice, because I really didn't know the tone or the style. Nobody would tell me. And so I get the script, and the title was The Adventures of Luke Skywalker, as taken from the Journal of the Whills, Saga number 1, The Star Wars. So I'm thinking, well, wait a second. Harrison's the leading man. I was sort of an annoying sidekick as far as I could reckon. And I'm reading this thing, and I'm thinking, well, he must be Luke. It had been a couple of months since we did the screen test. I couldn't remember. I said, oh, well, then Harrison must be Luke. And then I get to the description. I said, oh, my gosh, I'm Luke. This is about me. I mean, traditionally you'd think, because Harrison was 35-ish, dashing, the traditional leading man. I was meant to be a teenager and certainly clueless on many levels, not only as a character, but as an actor. I didn't know what I was doing. It was my first movie. So I get the script and I read it, and I called up my friend. Now, this is in the days. Now everything's very secretive. It's coded, and it's on tablets, and it disappears every night, and you have to put in codes. I mean, it's crazy. In those days, nobody cared. So I called up my buddy, Jonathan. I said, I just read this. He knew all about George Lucas, and we both loved American Graffiti. I said, you've got to read this script. I can't tell. He goes, it's science fiction, right? I said, well, not really. I mean, there's a princess and a wizard and a big giant furry dog that wears headphones and flies spaceship. I mean, it's the goofiest thing I've ever read. I mean, it's kind of serious about the Force, but it's like laugh out loud. There's robots arguing over whose fault it is. I mean, listen, I can't describe it. You just have to read it for yourself. So, I gave it to Jonathan, And the next night he calls me up. He said, "You're right. It's the goofiest thing I've ever read. Can I give it to Meredith?" I said, "Sure, pass it around." I want to get feedback and as much, input as I can get. And it's interesting because we were cast as a threesome. There was a second set of Han, Leia, and Luke. And Marshal Lucas said they never mixed and matched. It was either Harrison, Carrie, and me, or the other three. And she said, George was packing to go to London. He still hadn't decided. And she took credit. She said, I said, that's the bunch you ought to go with. And so I went first, and we filmed the desert scenes in North Africa, and Sir Alec went, and the robots went, and the stunt guys. I didn't meet Harrison till I came back. He shot for a couple of weeks, and then Carrie was the final piece of the puzzle. And the very day I met Harrison, on the first day of shooting, he sort of really laid it out. He goes, "I'm the hero's hero." I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have been able to blow up the Death Star." I go, "Oh, got it." And he really, we did look up to him. He was like dad, And Carrie came over, and we thought, she truly was Hollywood royalty. I mean, she's playing a princess, but she's got a movie star mother and a recording star father, and grew up in Beverly Hills. I'm the middle of 7 children. You don't get more middle class than me. My dad was in the Navy, so we went to 9 schools, and I went to 9 schools in 12 years. So I was perpetually the new kid. So I really never had a sense of community, and that's why something like this, for you to welcome me like this and make me feel like I have a connection here, and they did the geology report, and to find out all these things, because I learned early on that I had Irish connections, because when I was like 4 or 5 and I wouldn't finish everything on my plate, my father would lecture me about the potato famine. But I don't mean to be facetious, because when I was asking about, I'd say, because kids take it literally. I said, I ate all my potatoes. If the Irish want my Brussels sprout, then more power to them. They can have them, I don't care. Don't get smart, young man. But and I learned from the movies. One of his favorite movies was The Quiet Man with John Wayne. And so, I learned about these things because of personal experience.
It's interesting you say that about the Irish movies, because of course we all were growing up with Star Wars, but you were in Star Wars, and you spoke there about how there was no secrecy with the first film. There didn't have to be. We now all know what Star Wars is. You got it at that point, and then the secrecy came in. And I think we all know that if you want a secret kept, this is your guy right here. With Last Jedi, you were talking about it to the press and you couldn't say anything. But of course, the Darth Vader story, the I Am Your Father story, was just huge. How did you keep that secret?
Oh, that was really hard now, because in the script for Empire, by Empire then there were people interested. So there would be people at the pubs on Elstree when we did it at, the new ones were at Pinewood, but we were at Boreham Wood. And so, there would be tabloid newspaper reporters with 50-pound notes. And you go, "Hey, so when we come on, mate," and people would leak. Usually what you call background artists, we call them extras in America, but so much more dignified to call them background artistes. Extras sounds like, air conditioning or bucket seats when you buy a car, something you don't really need, but. In any case, there was a dummy line for that moment, where I said, "He told me enough. He told me you killed my father." And he said, the line that he said, "You don't know the truth. Obi-Wan killed your father." And it's just as you see in the film where I say, "No," and he says, "Search your feelings, you know it to be true." So I thought this was fantastic twist. If Sir Alec Guinness is the true villain of the piece, I didn't see that coming. And I thought, this is going to be great. Well, we filmed that scene. Now, mind you, we're on a rostrum that's like 50 feet in the air, big wind machines going, you barely hear. And of course, whenever Darth Vader had dialogue, it sounded, and he had that the accent. I think he's from Lancashire, or I'm not sure where. David Prowse is a lovely man, but he would say things like,
I want the location of those hidden rebel types.
and muffled, so you could, and of course you couldn't read his lips. You know, I've done foreign films where that's your cue. When the other guy's mouth stops moving, you do your line. But with Darth Vader, you know, you're on your own, baby. But no, we filmed this thing, and he said the line, Obi-Wan killed your father. Within 2 days, on the front page of I think with the Sun, it wasn't a headline, it was a little box. It said, Guinness head baddie in Star Wars 2. And Carrie and Harrison were, oh God, it's terrible. Now, I knew they'd leaked false information, so internally I was delighted, but I had to commiserate too. Oh, all those bastards, you know, they ruin it for everyone. So, you know, yeah, I kept that for a way too long. I don't like it, by the way. It's not fun in any way, because, you know, you don't want to slip up and spill the beans. But
Can we talk lightsabers? I want
Sure.
to know your reaction. You were one of the first people in the world to see a lightsaber, and I want to know about your lightsaber turning from blue to green. What's that about?
Well, like everything else, I mean, George called Star Wars the most expensive, low-budget movie ever made. And by that, he meant every penny had to wind up on the screen. So when I went in to do the first scene with the lightsabers, when Alec gives me by the way, I kept calling him Sir Alec, Sir Alec, Sir Alec, and one day he tapped me lightly and then gave me a pretty hard, and I went, what? He said, I want to be known by my name, not my accolade. What do you want me to call you, Big Al? He loved irreverent humor, by the way, and so he presented me the lightsaber, and I had a battery pack with a wire down here, and there was just the handle, and I'd turn it on and freeze, and they'd run in and put this pole on, which was covered with movie screen material, which reflects the light source back at, 20, 25 times the intensity, and it would revolve. And it looked really cheesy. So, I mean, I kept it in the thought bubble, but I thought, boy, what a disappointment. Because you can imagine anything when you're reading the script. There's no budget limitations on your imaginations. And by the way, George is miserable when he's filming. We do long scenes with squibs going off. He's fed up, you know, turn him this, that, and that, and turn, boom, 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 and cut. And we look out at George, you know, we're in the cockpit, we look at George, and George will go, let's do it again, but this time, do it better. It's an Oscar-nominated direction. So he suffered this. You can imagine, because if I knew about it for 7 months before I started filming, he had lived with it for years, developing it and so forth. These wonderful concept drawings and paintings by Ralph McQuarrie, and then you see it realized in the flesh. Now, mind you, you know, and it looked pretty revolving. And they were shooting it through angled green glass. And Gil Taylor, the director of photography, said, look through the lens. And so I looked through the lens, and my stand-in held it. And it looked great. The problem was when it moved outside of the specific lighting, it went dead. So they went in and painted it in like you would an animated cartoon, frame by frame. But I always felt bad, because there would be like a contest for kids to come visit the set, you know, the Palitoy prize winners. And young people like this young man in the front seat, you know, 10, 11, 12, would come in, and they want to see, you know, the full John Williams score and cut action sequences. Instead, they're seeing the Wookiee with his head off smoking, you know. So it's very disillusioning to actually see the filming. It's only good when it's all put together and finished and it looks perfect.
So I would have thought that when the lightsaber turned green, it was an early part of Irishness heading into the Force. That was always my theory, but maybe not. You mentioned John Williams' score, which everybody adores, and I think everybody, just those amazing first moments when you go to a Star Wars movie, right, and you hear the first opening bars. Isn't it stunning?
Breathtaking.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, the producer picked me up we were doing ADR, where you dub the film after the fact. And he said, oh, I just got back from London, the London Symphony Orchestra, to finish the score. Do you want to hear it? I said, sure. Now, I didn't know what to expect. Most science fiction films, so again, it's not really science fiction, but futuristic films had sort of antiseptic synthesizer scores and that kind of thing. I just wasn't prepared for a score that was like old school Korngold or Max Steiner, you know, Captain Blood and King Kong and all these magnificent films. And we were in a 2-seater sports car, and you know, with the sound system, and you're pretty much sitting in the speaker. I mean, the words can't describe. I mean, tears just flowed down my face. I remember when then they gave me the album, which was just black with the white letters Star Wars, and I said to the marketing people, shouldn't you put pretty pictures, you know how it is, there's all the way the posters are now, where there's all these different scenes. They said, trust us, when you walk in the store, you could see across the store just those letters popping out. I mean, it was a real education to see how this thing was put together, how it was marketed, because remember, nobody thought this, it got turned down by pretty much every studio. I always thought that was funny, you know. Steven Spielberg makes Jaws for Universal, it makes a fortune. He brings them in Close Encounters and they go, yeah, I don't think so. So he takes it to Columbia. George makes American Graffiti for Universal. It makes, I mean, at the time, proportionate to how much it cost, it was the highest grossing, low budget comedy ever made. He brings him Star Wars. No, I don't think so. So he goes to Fox. But, you know, it was unclear how to, we opened with no poster because the advertising department couldn't figure out whether to sell it. There was one campaign was like an entertainment journey beyond your imagination, far beyond, which was sort of pretentious but it had gravitas. The other was sort of like promoting it like the little rascals in outer space bumping heads and goofy. I mean, it was somewhere in between.
To come back to the music as well, I think you retweeted Ryan Johnson's tweet today about one of the DVD extras for Last Jedi, right? That it's going to be released without dialogue and with just John Williams's
There's
music.
A code on the DVD that you can punch in, and you can watch the film with everything removed, the dialogue, the sound effects, everything except for the music. Now, everyone remembers the main themes and so forth, but when you see the nuance and the subtlety of those moments isolated, it's just breathtaking. And they, you know, there was an article about it. It said, the Star Wars Last Jedi will be released with a feature with a music-only score, as though it's a silent film. And I tweeted, great, it's my first silent film since The Force Awakens.
And we were going to come to The Force Awakens in just a moment, and we're going to have a look at that wonderful clip. Just briefly, as well as your Star Wars family, we know you have your Batman family, and you seem to have a ball as the voice of the Joker. Can you tell us a little bit about just your approach? And you have to do the laugh for us because it's extraordinary.
Well, I should have warmed up. I did not expect to do it. You can't just, it's like starting the car, in cold weather, you got to warm it up. You know what was funny about that is that I'm a huge Batman fan, and I saw the people that they were assembling for the project, and I said, oh, they're going to write up to the audience and hope to bring adults in instead of making it more juvenile like the Saturday morning cartoons. They aspired to be like the Max Fleischer cartoons, the Superman theatrical releases, which are considered among the finest ever made. So I said, ooh, I really want to get in on this. And I was expecting, I wanted to play a villain that had never been seen before. That had never been done on the Adam West television show or in any of the movies. But they said, they got me an audition for the Joker. And I thought, well, here's the problem. They announced that Michael Keaton was going to play Batman. And all the comic book nerds just flipped out. He can't, he's Mr. Mom, he's a comedian, and blah, blah, blah. They had huge blowback. And of course, that was before everyone saw how great he was. Yeah. So my thing was that, if they were to cast Luke Skywalker, you want to see some really angry nerds? Cast Luke Skywalker as the Joker. They'll blow the roof off the joint. They'll be so mad. So I had the confidence of knowing that they couldn't cast me. Even if I was good, they wouldn't be able to cast me because they didn't want to. It was right after that Michael Keaton flap. So normally you have a certain amount of performance anxiety. When I auditioned for Sir Peter Hall for Amadeus on Broadway, my knees were knocking because it was Sir Peter Hall and all of that. Here, that was removed because I thought, well, they can't cast me anyway, so I'm going to go in and make them really sorry they can't cast me. I got very arrogant. I knew I was the Joker. No one else could do it. And I went in and I did all the things, all of it. And I walked out saying, top that, not to them. I was polite, thank you so much. But in the car, I said, good luck finding a better Joker than that. Now, about 3 days later, my agent called and they said, they want you. I said, for what? They said, for the Joker. And I went 180 degrees in the other direction. I said, oh no, I can't do that. I said, listen, everybody has an idea how that Joker sounds. Cesar Romero was fantastic on the TV series. And what fool would follow Jack Nicholson in anything? I said, I can't do it. I just can't. And they said, you've got to. The director called, Andrea Romano, and I said, Andrea, I don't even remember what I did. I mean, I can't remember. If you told me now to do that voice I did at the audition, I have short-term memory loss. She said, relax, just breathe. We have your audition tape. We'll play it for you when you get there. Because I hadn't really done that much animation before. And what a treat, because one of the reasons I wanted to go to Broadway is to play character parts. After Star Wars made such an impression, people were thinking me of a certain way, a certain innocence and cluelessness or whatever. So I wasn't getting like what I thought were really challenging character roles. And that's why I've enjoyed the Joker. And again, when I started recording, the scripts were so good. I said, oh, this is great. This thing will run for at least 3 years. And it ran, I don't know, 4 or 5 years in the initial run. But then they brought us back for the video games. And by the way, I've won a few awards over the years that you've never heard of. I've never heard of. What, the Iowa Deep Dish Dinner Theater Awards? Oh, okay, I'll do it. But I won a BAFTA.
You did?
For the Joker, and to me that's like, oh my gosh, that's like a real award. I forget why.
You do a superb job. We need to come back to Star Wars because...
See, it's just like real life.
It's like real life.
Always back to Star Wars, always.
Always. Story of
I'm
your
not
life.
complaining. Thank God for the Jedi pension plan.
I'm intrigued to know the conversation. When you thought the first 3 movies, that was it. Next thing they want you on Force Awakens, was it a conversation, a phone call? How did they ask you?
Well, that's it. We had a beginning, a middle, and an end. I thought, well, even if they come back, I knew they were going to do the prequels. And I thought, well, if they do any in the future, it'll be so far in the future that it won't involve us. George one time back in the day said, hey, kid, how'd you like to appear in episode 7, handing down Excalibur to the next young hope? This is back when we were filming the first one, 76. I said, when would we be doing this? He goes, oh, I don't know, like 2011? Now, I defy anyone to add, 24, 35 years to their age. No matter how old you are, if you add 35 years to your age, you're shocked. And so I did the math and went, oh gosh, I'll be over 50. Although, having a job lined up at the turn of the century is appealing to any actor, right? So, and I said, George, whatever you want. I adore him, I owe him so much. But he later said, oh, I was just kidding, I'm not going to do that. Well, here's the thing. We were at a Star Wars celebration, and Carrie was there, and I was there, and my daughter Chelsea and my wife Mary Lou were there, and they said, George wants to have lunch with you. So I said to Carrie, I said, well, something's up. He doesn't ask us to lunch unless he wants us to do a documentary for the DVD, or it'll be some promotional thing. And of course, we owe him so much, we're going to do it. They were planning, I think, a Star Wars television series. I thought, well, maybe I could be a narrator, maybe I could direct one, I'd love that. Mary Lou said, what if he wants to do another trilogy? And I just laughed. I said, honey, he specifically said, after the prequels, I'm done. I don't want to be making movies in my 70s, and, I'm all done. So that wasn't even on the radar. And we knew something was up even more when they said, instead of Chelsea coming, she's going to go to lunch with George's daughter. Only Mary Lou, my wife, and Carrie can come. So we thought, oh, this is really big. So I said, no matter what it is, I'm going to keep a poker face. I'm really good at that. And so he, you know, in his sort of laconic, offhanded way, he goes, I've decided to turn over Lucasfilm to Kathy Kennedy. I won't be running it anymore. He didn't tell us about the Disney deal. Otherwise, I would have run out and bought stock. But that's insider trading. So no, he didn't do that. We didn't find out until months later. I'm only telling you this story because it shows you the difference between Carrie and I. He said, I'm turning over the company to Kathy Kennedy, and they're going to want to do another trilogy. Now, if you don't want to do it, we won't kill you off, we won't recast you. We'll just write you out of the story. 2 seconds after he said that, Carrie, I don't want to slap the table and spill the water. Carrie slaps the table and goes, I'm in! And is there anything in it for Billy? That's her daughter. And I'm like this. I said, wow, I don't know what to say. He said, well, you don't have to decide right now. Just think about it. So we leave, and I got Carrie aside. I said, Carrie, poker face. Don't just throw your cards out on the table like that. Your agent will kill you. I mean, you have to act aloof, It's like that girl that won't date you in high school. You want her even more. So don't do that. She said, well, Mark, again, she's so, has such a firm grip on what reality is. And of course, I wouldn't think of it this way. She goes, Mark, what kind of parts are there for women over 50 in Hollywood? I said, see, I stand corrected. Because, I wasn't looking at it through that lens. Of course she was going to say yes. But I said, but still, you could have waited until we're out of the room, for God's sake. But I really struggled with this because I thought, wait a second, I had a beginning, a middle, and end. There were some critics that were really harsh to the prequels and why mess with a good thing.
But they sent you a script then, right?
No, I didn't.
No?
No, they didn't send me a script. Eventually, I said, look, there's a way out of this. First of all, Harrison's not going to do it. See, just like I said, he's not going to come to my Walk of Fame ceremony. I said, Harrison's not going to do it because he's too accomplished, he's sick of hearing about Star Wars, and he's way too rich. And so I remember, because I waited, Mary Lou said, you better call George, it's been like 5-6 weeks, he's going to think you don't want to do it. And it was all settled for me when I picked up the paper, or online, however, Harrison Ford signs for episode 7. I said, well, I've just been drafted. Because let's face it, it's all or nothing. Because I thought if he doesn't do it, that gives me an out if I get cold feet. But if he's in, and I'm the only one that says no, I'll be the most hated man in nerddom. They'll read in the paper, Larry and Moe signed for new Three Stooges, Curly a holdout. So I thought, I don't want to do that. And I thought, well, that's good. He made the decision for me. And what a great opportunity because, we'd lost contact. We'd seen each other occasionally, but to get back together and, we'd say, can you believe we're still doing this after all these years? And there was a comfort level, I didn't know Harrison would turn into the biggest movie star on the planet. I certainly knew he was one of the best actors I'd ever worked with. And with Carrie, as tough as she was and that acerbic tongue, she really had a vulnerability. She had a little girl side to her because, it's got to be, as hard as it is on a man in Hollywood, it's immeasurably harder for a woman. And like I say, she got things so much faster. She came to see me in one Broadway show, and she says, what's with your playbill? I said, what's wrong with my playbill? She goes, well, because I didn't mention the movies by name. I said, something like, Mark Hamill, known for a series of space-themed films, made his Broadway debut in, and then I listed all my theater critics. She said, get over yourself. I said, what are you talking about? I just want to focus on the theater instead of, because they think it's all malarkey here. And she said, Mark, I'm Princess Leia. You're Luke Skywalker. Get used to it. And I thought, you know what? You can, because I didn't really reject it, but I wasn't sort of like, I wasn't doing conventions and playing on that part for other parts, going on Battlestar Galactica or whatever they are, variations on a theme. But she got it, so much faster than I did. And she embraced it and just loved it in a way that I thought, and that's another thing. I'm appreciating it now in a way that I couldn't have in my 20s. Because I've had all that life experience and I see what it means to people. It's really overwhelming.
Well, we were so thrilled to have you back in Force Awakens. And I mean, I'm sure you'll all agree, just that final scene. First of all, we're seeing Ireland, then we're seeing the return of Mark Hamill. How does it feel watching that? How does it feel watching it?
Do you have a line that they cut out and you've all heard the joke? That came with a hand. Did you bring it too? People all give them these jokes on Twitter, and I spoke the other day and I thought, I got to be careful because everything goes on Twitter. I mean, I didn't plan to say it, but they were talking about episode 9 and I called it episode 9, the last paycheck. And it sounds so cynical and greedy, and I didn't mean it in a horrible kind of, I meant it for fun, but now I have to realize that, I don't know where I said that, but the very next day, it's on the internet, and I have to be really careful about that sort of thing.
How was it stepping on Skellig, Michael? What a beautiful place to be, but were you kind of blown away by it?
Oh, I mean, yeah, you just can't. Well, first of all, we're living in a house especially on 8, where you open the doors to the backyard, and it's just rolling pastures and sheep and the sunrise. And I'm so cynical, I think this looks like a matte painting to me. It doesn't look real. You can't have anything this beautiful. And then, of course, to go to the island, then they make you work for it. I mean, I said, how long are you giving the crew? They said 45 minutes. I said, give me 2.5 hours. Because every 15 minutes, I mean, the steps, each one is this, I don't know how they got them out there in the 1100s. I mean, I guess by canoe or who knows.
Yeah, exactly.
But, and of course, the indigenous bird is the puffin, which is what the porgs were based on, really. And since there's no natural predator other than the seagulls, if you sit, I remember I'd sit on the lawn very quietly, and they'd kind of come up to you. They're curious. They won't get up on your lap, but you'd look around, and all of a sudden you'd have this family of puffins all around you. Adorable birds. In Iceland, they're on the menu. You get them roasted and all that, but that's a horrible thing. They are adorable, and they have these small wings. They can't take off. They have to jump off the cliff and catch the wind. Fantastic.
We saw you there with Ray, with Daisy Ridley, and she's an extraordinary addition to the Star Wars family.
Sure.
I mean, you were talking, Princess Leia and Carrie Fisher started this incredible female role, and there's a lot of talk in the latest films about that continuation. How has it been working with the newer generation, if you like? Have they asked your advice?
Well, listen, they are so accomplished. I'm thinking of asking for their advice. Not only the people that you've never seen before, John Boyega and Daisy, but Oscar Isaac is just an incredible actor, and Donald Gleason, the son of Brendan, and Andy Serkis, and now Laura Dern, and Benicio Taro. It's like the best cast I've ever been near. Because I get to work with Daisy, robots, a Wookiee, and porgs. Oh, and caretakers.
Yes.
No, I just think the world of them, and they're the next generation, I mean, I don't want to be the old curmudgeon that would be on set saying, well, in my day, we didn't do it that way, and we liked it that way, no.
We got to see more of you, thankfully, in
please
Last
don't.
Jedi. We're
can't-
going to show more of you because that was some entrance you made in
myself.
Force Awakens. But if you can take our second clip, and we'll see the
Okay.
close to the beginning again.
Have you all seen it? With no spoilers, I hope. Doesn't end that particularly well.
The First Order will control all the major systems within weeks. We need your help. We need the Jedi Order back. We need Luke Skywalker.
You don't need Luke Skywalker.
Did you hear a word I just
You
said?
think what? I'm gonna walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order? What did you think was going to happen here? You think that I came to the most unfindable place in the galaxy for no reason at all? Go away.
I'm not leaving without you.
I've so many more questions, but I'm conscious of time and that you have questions, so let's take some of your questions. If you'll just wait for somebody to come with you to the mic, if you want to raise your hand.
Hello, Niall McCahan. I manage a theatre up in Derry, and I know, of course, more recently, apart from Skellig, you're up in Malin Head in the northwest. I just want to know, did you enjoy that visit? Because I know the people in the northwest certainly loved you, the visit there, but also too the tourism potential it's had for that area is just unbelievable. And just want to know your thoughts on visiting that lovely part of the world too, up in the northwest of Ireland.
Everybody was great. I mean, the time, was that when we stopped at the pub and we only got to the parking lot? We didn't get inside? Well, all I know is that, and we also went to one pub where they had these 10 to 12-year-old kids that sang that song that it's in around, I mean, just melted your heart. And, you know, now everybody has a phone. Everybody has a camera on them. So my job now, I'm king of the selfies. I went around and did selfies with everyone in the pub. And that's how they got pictures of me pulling pints, is because the guys behind the bar goes, when do we get our selfies? So I went behind the bar and I did selfies with them. And I was noticing, I said, why didn't you finish that all in one go? They said, oh, that's not how you do a Guinness. You got to let it set for a while. And I said, show me. I mean, I need something to fall back on if my career goes down the tubes. And, you know, they showed me how to do it, you know, on an angle, and you set it so you don't get too big a head and all that. I was so impressed that I was able to learn this. And of course, the one guy was able to do a little gesture at the end and put a shamrock in the foam. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm in the presence of greatness, clearly. But no, like I say, we had one day off in Dingle, and we went down to the high street, and it was like the entire crew who I'd seen just yesterday walking up and down the streets. And all the people, the businesses there invited us in, and they're so clever. They had, you know, Skellig Wars T-shirts. You know, they know how to appeal to the. And by the way, you know, I know we really helped the Irish economy, but just be prepared for decades of Star Wars nerds in Yoda ears with lightsabers coming to your town, but leaving a lot of their tourist dollars behind. And they're the sweetest fans in the world. I mean, no disrespect to them. Yes, sir.
What's your favorite Star Wars movie?
Oh my gosh, you know, it's like saying, who's your favorite child? You like them all for different reasons. Now, was that a politician talking or not? So I can't, it's hard for me to pick. What's your favorite?
The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. I like that one because it was darker. It wasn't just a repeat of Star Wars. It was more cerebral, it was more thought-provoking, it was more spiritual with the Force. I loved Yoda. I mean, what a great character. And as usual, Luke, it's right in front of his face and he doesn't get it. Remember, he was looking for Obi-Wan Kenobi and there was Alec Guinness and I thought he was Ben. He had this, you know, when I'm looking for Yoda, a great Jedi warrior, Luke's thinking he's going to see some guy that's 6'3", you know, with gigantic He-Man muscles. Yoda to him is just a little froggy grandma. Hey, get out of there, that's my food. Well, that's also a great Jedi master. Size matters not. Yeah. So I'm glad you enjoyed one that. If I had to choose, maybe I'd lean towards that one. Don't tell anybody.
Can we take another question there, yeah?
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
I just want. Yeah. Sorry. Of all of your own performances as the Joker, I was wondering if you had a personal favourite.
Well, every time I play the Joker, I like to think it's the very first time I played him in the sense that he's used in different ways. There was a parody of Thelma and Louise where Harley and Ivy went off together and the Joker was left at home puttering around in floppy slippers. So he was played as kind of a buffoon and kind of clueless. Other times he's very sinister and scary. So there was the one line that I really loved that informed who he was for me was there was an episode called The Man Who Killed Batman, where some too-big thug thought that he had killed Batman. He became very celebrated in the underworld. Joker's life just fell apart. He had no raison d'etre. You know, the line that got me was, without Batman, crime has no punchline. I thought, really? The concept of crime having a punchline, and that's one of the things, I love Heath Ledger, don't get me wrong, but it was such a novel approach because my Joker is joyous. He is gleeful. He loves really messing people up and being horrible. So he enjoys his job. But every Joker I've seen brings something different to the table. I've never seen one where I say, oh, I don't like that. There's voiceover Jokers, all the live action Jokers, fantastic. The Mask of the Phantasm is a really good script. That was the feature length, which filled in a lot of the backstories. But like I say, I never expected something like a cartoon character or a comic book character to be so satisfying over the years because I really love him so much. And the fans have responded in a way because I got so scared. I said to the producers, you know, in the original Frankenstein, it says the creature ? They didn't even put Boris Karloff's name in the end credits. I said, do that for me. Put the Joker ? Because I don't want the audience to be prejudiced thinking, golly, they followed us to be Joker. Yeah. I thought they were going to freak out. And they said, don't worry, the credits go by so fast, nobody's going to be able to read it anyway.
We have just one more question down the back here, I believe.
Hi, Mark. Welcome back to Ireland.
Thank
Just
you.
a question. You've said in interviews a few times that you kind of fundamentally disagreed with the story arc of your character in The Last Jedi.
No.
What would you have liked to have seen happen? Did you have a sense of where you wanted it to go?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I regretted saying that because that's something that should stay internal between the director and the writer and so forth. And I said it before I saw the movie put together. But I also have said, and this is okay because I mean it happened and it's a matter of record. When we were filming the scene there was no line. I joked about that came with a hand, but that's just me. JJ said to me between takes, and by the way, just to show how powerful Luke is, the force emanating from it, we'll probably put in a couple floating boulders around you. And I went, oh boy. You know, that means in the next episode, boy, I'm going to have force lightning coming out of every orifice in my body. So when I read 8 before 7 came out. And when I saw that he turned off the force, he wants to end the Jedi Order, all these things, I called the office. I said, hey, Ryan, have you seen 7? They haven't put the boulders in, have they? You better get them out. He said, no, we're on top of that. We've got it all fixed. It probably would have been easier and maybe more fun to play someone like that because what I had a hard time with, I said, even though I picked Kylo Ren wrongly as the next hope, and that's on my conscience, I still said to Ryan, I said, a Jedi would never give up. A Jedi wouldn't cut off his telepathic connection with his sister. It's just too radical. So I had to make up a backstory for myself that's much more severe than is in the movie, you know? Because Ryan said, yeah, make up whatever backstory you want to make it work for yourself. But he pushed me out of my comfort zone. He thought it would be more interesting since Luke was so triumphant in the original trilogy to go in the opposite direction. The movie's very challenging on many levels. I mean, it's more difficult as the years go on to deliver a film a Star Wars film that have all the elements that you want, the action, the adventure, the humor, the characters, and still surprise people. You know, I mean, after...
And have you really exited? I mean, we saw you exit, but we know
that's
Jedi's
my
can
theory.
Come back, you know.
They can. Because I said to them, I said, are you going to have the metal hand just clang down on the rock? And I didn't see the finished effect. In the script, it didn't say anything about the robes. They just, because I said to Ryan, I said, it's dramatically inert. If there's nobody around to say, oh, well, you know, what happened to you, or you died, or whatever, it's just like, huh? I said, for all I know, I just transported somewhere else and left my robes behind. And I'm now happily living on a nudist planet
There
somewhere.
you go. And what a note to
That's
end
my
on.
theory, anyway. I don't know if that's true or
Mark,
not.
sadly, we're out of time. I know we've so
Oh,
many
too
more
bad.
questions.
Thank
Just
you
before
so
we
much for
finish,
coming.
I really want to wish you the very best for the parade tomorrow. You're going to be sitting in the company of our much-loved President,
Well,
Michael
I
G.
had a crack
Higgins.
time.
You had, but I'm going to teach you one more because our wonderful president is an Irish speaker, and I think he'd love if you could wish him Happy St. Patrick's Day in Irish. I've written it out phonetically for
Oh
you.
my
You ready for
gosh.
this? So it's Banach Thí na Féile Póric. Do you want to give it a go?
Banach Thí na Féile Pádraig. And repeat it.
Yeah.
And memorize it overnight.
We're just going to take our closing comments from Rhys. Thank you so much, Mark.
Mark Hamill, thank you so much. That was such a great discussion. I've got an idea. All the voices you do, maybe you should just do Star Wars. You just do every single voice for the whole thing. And I have to agree with the young man out there. My opinion, Empire was
You like
was the
Empire,
top.
all right.
And I'm going to have to disagree with you on one point.
What's that?
All Jokers are not created equal.
Oh.
Your Joker was one of the top. So
Well,
it was
thank
really
you.
so.